Happy day 60! So if you're new here, I will explain because this probably makes absolutely no sense. So basically, for the last 2 months, I've been, about 2 months, almost 2 months, I've been running a challenge on my channel called the 60 Days Challenge. And basically the way this works is with only 20 minutes a day, you're supposed to be able to write a novel in 60 days. Now, I did not do that. And here is why. Within like the first week or two, I hit 10,000 words, which was amazing. That was amazing. If I had kept that up, I would have accomplished the goal. However, I discovered that I didn't really like writing novels, so I deleted that down. I deleted 8,000 words of those 10,000 words and started over again, and then I decided that I really didn't like writing novels, so I turned it into a graphic novel. But then I wasn't happy with the graphic novel, so I stopped writing the graphic novel and decided to edit the graphic novel to see how it was going. And then I realized that it was the last week. So I wasn't going to be able to get any new writing done, especially either. So I didn't really complete the challenge. But there is good in every failure. There's a lesson to be learned in every failure. Hopefully you succeed on the challenge, and if you're interested in following along with the challenge, the playlist will be up above or on this side. It's one of these sides. And you can do it, and you can succeed where I failed. However, I failed, so I'm going to talk a bit about that failing. Because I didn't fail to learn things. See how I spun that around? So, I don't feel very authoritative right now because I'm in my pajamas sitting on my unmade bed with my pillow crumpled like this. That's not better. I just woke up, as you can tell by my coffee. Not that you knew it was coffee. But anyway, yes, I failed, but I learned a lot along the way. Almost every video is me saying I didn't make as much progress as I wanted, but I learned this about myself. I learned that I don't really like writing novels as anything more than a hobby right now. I'm still going to try it again because I want to learn to be better at it one day. I'm going to try it for NaNoWriMo, but it's just, I prefer writing comic book scripts. I learned that I'm a faster writer than I thought. I really did improve my word count by writing every day. I would do the 20-minute sprints, and I could see I started out around like 500 words, and by the end I was nearing like 1,000 words in 20 minutes. So it was like a noticeable increase, and I've seen other people who have been doing the challenge increasing their word count every time that they write, which is awesome. So I do think that writing is something that you have to practice, and I think that this is great practice, and that's sort of how I've come to view it. I didn't succeed at writing a novel in 60 days, but I did succeed in learning about myself and what I like to write and my writing style. I was struggling a lot with tone towards the end. I was trying to write something a little bit more upbeat and cheery and like with more jokes thrown in. And I learned that I feel very insecure whenever I write jokes. It's really hard for me to tell if they're good or not. It's one of those things that I just can't tell if they're good. And I've had my sister read some jokes that I've put in things, and she'll laugh and she'll think it's funny, and I'm like, yes. I was so insecure about that. And then other times, she won't even realize it was supposed to be a joke. She'll be like, why do you say that? I'm like, oh no. So like, I just can't tell with those. So since this book was hopefully going to have more of that, it made me real nervous. And I was also in the middle of writing another series, which I will link to whichever side that's gonna show up on, codenamed Project Punk, which is a little bit darker. It's not like, well, okay, it's a little bit dark, but the message is hopeful, but it's a little bit dark. And this series wasn't supposed to be like that. And I was finding that whenever I was trying to write in this more upbeat tone, I was struggling, and whenever I had little darker moments within the series, I was much happier with them. And I don't know if that's just because I was in the headspace of the other comic book that I was working on. This graphic novel that I was attempting to write for the 60 Days Challenge was just not a tone that I have practice with. I've worked on, I'd say well, I guess this would be I've worked on 6 writing projects in my life that I would consider things that I actually worked on. The first was Cave of the Creeps, which I wrote when I was like 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there, like elementary school. The first 2 were in elementary school, and I never finished it, but it was when I decided I was gonna be a writer. Like, I was like, this is gonna be on bookshelves everywhere. I think I hid it in my attic. The second one was Pain Eaters, which was also in elementary school, writing project. I had just watched The Matrix, and I was obsessed with this idea of like machines controlling humanity. So I wrote this story about a human who escaped where the humans were being kept and met this person who he thought was a human, but was really actually one of the machines. And the first book, which was probably like 10 pages, but I was like, I wrote a novel, guys, ended with him realizing that this girl was actually one of the machines and was the leader of the machines. And then I just never continued writing it. It was terrible, but it was the first thing that I actually considered that I had finished the first book of. I didn't, but you know, you get the point. Little me thought I did. Then I took a break from writing for years, and I decided I was going to become a lepidopterist instead. They study butterflies and caterpillars and moths. And I became obsessed with this, and that was my path in life. And then when I was 16, I read Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. My phone case is Saga. Saga totally changed my life. It made me want to be a writer again. And at the same time that I was reading that, I was reading Star Wars Legends novels, and in those novels were all these worlds that I loved and characters that I loved, but they also introduced all these new characters, and I was obsessed with Star Wars. I still am obsessed with Star Wars. Reading these stories set in the Star Wars world, but with new characters, I was like, wait, I could do this. I could introduce my own characters, because I don't know how to write Obi-Wan Kenobi or Darth Vader or Ahsoka Tano, but I know how to write my characters and I know this world. So that's when I started writing my Star Wars fan fiction. And that was the first time that I'd written anything that I actually thought was good. I also finished the first in that series, the first book. That was more like 80 pages, it was a little rushed towards the end, but there were points in it that I actually thought were good at the time. I now know they were not, but like I was very happy with that, and I'm still happy with those characters that I came up with. And I would love to figure out a way to share them with the world, not in a fan fiction, but I don't really know how to do that yet. But that's why I'm not going to give more details, because I'd like to take some ideas from that fan fiction and those characters and maybe put them in something else. And then after I wrote that, I read through it and I was like, oh, this is actually bad. But I love these characters, so I started writing the fan fiction again. And I'm still actually happy with a lot of segments of that, at least from last time I read them a couple years, maybe like a year ago. But my writing has definitely improved since then. But that was around the same time, while I was writing the second draft of that fanfic, which I never actually finished, but I'm still have lots of little bits from it lying around my house, that I started writing my first comic book script. I wrote maybe like 15 issues, 14, 15, and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever written. And at the time, no, I still think the fanfic might have been better, the second draft of the fanfic, because when I actually read through this thing, the dialogue was terrible, but the ideas I'm still happy with, and I'm gonna rewrite it someday. Which is why I always say you should never throw out anything you write, because both of these series that I'm talking about, the fanfic and the first comic script I ever wrote, they weren't well written enough to be shown to anybody, but they have awesome characters and ideas, and I just need to fit them together in a better way and write it better, so I'm gonna use them one day. Having all these stories from my childhood that I've just worked on again and again and thrown out, worked on again and again and thrown out. I keep all the trash. So I just have like unlimited ideas. I don't have to go, well, once I finish Project Punk, I'm out of ideas. I'm like, Project Punk is idea 1 of like 20. And by the time I finish writing all of them, I will be very old. And Project Punk was lucky enough to be like, this is priority 1 right now. But anyway, I'm rambling. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, don't throw anything away. But after I decided to stop working on the fanfic and that initial first comic book script, I decided to write Project Punk. And I'm now on the 3rd version of Project Punk, and I'm happy with this 3rd version. So that was a lot. That was like my whole writing history. I'm sorry. So if you were interested, great. If you weren't, sorry. I just think it's important to learn things from every project. This graphic novel that I tried to write taught me that I feel insecure about trying to put jokes in things, but I want to, so I have to get better at it and stop feeling so awkward about it. And 2, I don't like writing things set on Earth. I just don't. Every time that my characters would interact, I would just be like, is this how, like, I was almost like holding myself to this weird standard of hard sci-fi. Basically, the graphic novel was supposed to be a science fiction story set on Earth in the future. I still want to tell the story someday, and I want it to be set on Earth in the future, but it was really hard, and I think that I need to do a lot more research before I can do it. I don't like researching. I just like writing and making it up as I go along, but not doing research and not really knowing how these things would work really messed me up. Like, part of it's set at NASA, and not knowing anything about NASA besides the fact that it's called NASA and it exists, and I think I know what the logo looks like. It's just like, I didn't want to have to do the research, but not doing the research made me feel really insecure about everything that I was writing. I've also learned that it's really hard for me to work on 2 projects at once. Project Punk is always going to take precedence because I'm currently working on trying to get it illustrated. You can check out the videos about that up above. I'm actually going to have a video going about trying to reach out to artists, established artists. I can't focus on 2 of them at once. It's hard enough to focus on one. I usually have to make myself write. Sometimes I will be like, I want to write, and then I'll sit down and I'll write all day, and then my parents will come and be like, where did you go? And I was like, I wrote 7 issues. But then some days it's just like, for most of the time, I just don't want to write. I just don't. So I think that that's what made writing in the 20-minute sprints difficult for me with this series. Once in a while, I would be like, I want to write this, and I would write it, and then most days I wouldn't want to. So I wasn't making good progress. I write in spurts, I've found. So like, I will write nonstop for like 3 days, once a month. And then the rest of the time, I'm just like, I don't even want to look at a notebook, guys. Just get it away. And that's just how my creativity and inspiration works. And I can be very productive during those crazy spurts, but I do need long breaks in between them, otherwise I start to feel very creatively burnt out. Working that way it didn't mesh with this challenge. I thought that I could train myself to write every day, but in reality, I just avoided it whenever possible, or like didn't make very good progress. I was motivated for like the first week or 2, and I was like, writing. This is great, I'm making all this word count progress. And then pretty much once I hit that first slump where I was like, wait, I don't want this to be a novel, it just went downhill from there. And I'm not saying it has to be like that for you. This was just my personal experience, and the whole point of this channel is to show you the ups and the downs. Because, you know, there's no such thing as a mountain if there isn't a valley, right? Wisdom. I'll stop rambling on. I hope that you had better success than I did. If you are interested in doing the challenge, as I said, there will be a playlist up above on one of these sides of the screen, which has the explanation video and the successes and the failures, my whole progress. You can watch one every week for 60 days. So I'd watch them on Mondays so you know what to do on each day. And I will also link a playlist of writing sprints that are each 20 minutes long, like for the challenge. Different people have different methods, so if this is how you work, and maybe sitting down every day for 20 minutes and listening to some inspirational music in a sprint and writing would be great for you, then I'm so happy that this exists and I made it, and here you go. Happy holidays, many months early. If you're more like me, don't feel like you have to do it. I maybe should have figured out if this was going to work for me before I decided to devote 60 days to it. I learned things about myself, and I got to ramble at a camera about my writing origins for like 20 minutes, so that's fun too. Hopefully I'll edit it down so it's not super boring, but maybe I don't, and maybe you're not even watching to this point because it was so boring and you clicked off already. Yay. I don't have a slogan, bye!